Hello, welcome to this month's Q&A. To start with, I want to pose a question to all of you. As you may have seen from Channel Update, I've got this group of Frostgrave soldiers, and I just spent some time trying to paint them. Now, I ran into what I call painter's block. It's when you're trying to paint and you just have trouble figuring out, well, what should it look like. So my question to you, I'm kind of pool the audience, so to speak. Where do you get your inspiration for color combinations for a given model? Now, that's assuming you don't actually already have some pattern you're drawing from, because, for example, a lot of 40K lore, the existing armies, factions, they have in different worlds. They've got, what paint colors to use. But what about the things that you don't have patterns for, that aren't given to you? Where do you get your ideas? Do you get different color combinations so that you have something that's different and not something that you see all over the place? And if you do have the opportunity where you do games where you try to make individual miniatures different, look different, how do you pick those colors? So that's my question to you guys. And so I appreciate comments below. Let me know, and I hope to learn from you guys. So with that, let's go on to the questions we've got today from a couple people through actually the comments below in my previous video, and also some comments or questions that were actually posted in a Facebook group that I shared this video on. So let's start with the first one from YouTube. Beer 40K have you ever done 60mm epic stuff before, and any interest in it? No, I've never done it before, but yes, I am very interested. I like large-scale battles with dozens of units, and I'm not talking about individual men. I like to have many squads and platoons and just a large table, just a massive army coming out. It's easy to do with small scale like that. Not very easy to do with like 40K and a regular 28mm scale. So I am really interested because it is a piece of wargaming that I enjoy. When I started with my wargaming back in, well, a long time ago, let's put it that way, most of the games had scenarios that ranged in size from small, we'll call it company level, to much larger. Now the thing is, even at 40K, you're not even really reaching the top end of that company level. So it's not big enough for what I'm used to. That's why the epic, I think, would be ideal. So yes, I'm interested. Alright, so the next question comes from DM Dave. It's a two-parter. He goes, I have kind of a two-part question. If price was not a problem, would you prefer to play a larger scale 40K AOS style or smaller skirmish style games? And I'm not trying to be funny here or take these out, but I honestly would say both. You see, I get in different moods to play different games. I really, like I mentioned before, I like the large battles. And so I do like bolt action 40K with a large amount of models. The bigger the army, the better. I like going for high point values. That is a lot of fun. But, sometimes it's so much more enjoyable just to shrink it all down, get a squad of 10 guys, 12 guys, and just fight a skirmish out. And there's a lot of different games out there, as you know. To me, that is you get to not just weave a story in, but you get to develop the personalities of the characters that you've got on the table, because it's such a small warband. You almost get to learn, have each character have their own personality. So that's a whole different side of the gaming that I enjoy. So I can't really say it's one or the other. I'd have to have one of each, so that as my mood shifts, I'd be able to go with it. So, as for your second question, as I recently got into a new skirmish game set in the Batman DC universe, is there a setting for a game that you have never tried that you've always wanted to try? Like comic book, Old West, modern day, for example. Actually, I never thought about that before. I've played a lot of role-playing games over the years, and we've done a lot of different genres. Fantasy, pulp fiction, World War II, detective stuff, even superhero. There's been sci-fi we've also done, but there's a couple that I've never done before, and actually would like to try something in that space. One is steampunk, because it's kind of a neat little, Jules Verne's kind of I really kind of like that idea of you've got a sort of a high-tech, low-tech combination there, and I want to see what I could do. As far as stories and characters I come up with there. But one thing I also like to try is kind of a Lost World thing, because the idea of having a modern, even a current day or even sci-fi group, this would probably be a skirmish type thing, but with their existing technology dropped into a prehistoric setting where they don't have access to all that, what are the stories and games and things? I'd like to try those two genres. Those are the kind of settings I would really like to try. So thanks for that question. That was really, really good. Now, Doug Ronson asked me, he's told me I'll toss one out here, is that because I'm finding a different balance in 40K gaming. In your favorite games of 40K, where do you find the balance between the narrative and the ludic, which is showing spontaneous and undirected playfulness, kind of aspects of the game? Okay. What about other systems? Which aftermath is most important? A good story to tell, or a superb winning strategy not connected to a story? So, really, that is a very good question, and it's not an easy one. There's no one answer, which is kind of neat, as I thought about that. But for 40K specifically, to me, it really is all about the narrative. If I can imagine a storyline about the army as my opponent and I bring to the table, it really doesn't matter how it goes on the table. It's not really important. What I remember the most is the story that develops out of there. Honestly, what I remember the scenes of the battle more than the outcome. I couldn't tell you sometimes we won or lost them. I just remember certain positions of the models and the certain dynamic that was occurring at that moment that just stand out. And there's actually one example, one of the favorite games. I honestly do not remember who won. There's a bat rep on my channel, but I just don't remember who won. But it was a Harlequin versus Imperial Guard, small combat patrol type setting, in a forested board, and it was really thrilling. It was not neither of us were walking all over the other. Granted, Harlequins are a whole lot better than Imperial Guard, but it was a really tense fight. Nowhere in there was it you could tell who was actually going to win. And so as I moved my forces up, I remember moving one of my tanks, it's actually an APC, moving up the road, and he got immobilized by the Harlequin fire. And so that's great. I need that mobility in this scenario, and it's gone. And so as I disembarked, we started getting the firefights. I was able to redirect the turret could still move. I was able to pick off several Harlequin models that were kind of approaching from different directions. And just I can picture the scenery. I could picture the story as we're trying to get to this Eldar-looking relic in our monument, and it just really reminded me. I really enjoy those kind of things. Like I said, don't care who won. It was fun. That's what I remember. So, but as I get into other things like historical games, like Bolt Action, that is a little different. I guess there I lean more toward the tactics, but I guess how to put this. I think the best way to put this is I really enjoy the tactical challenge on those games, and that's for me what a lot of it's about. But what makes a game really good isn't whether I won or lost. Is would what happened on that table make a really good action movie or war movie? That's so there's a story element in there. The story is the battle, right? It's not a larger narrative, but it's the battle. And would it be fun to watch in a movie? So having one side just kind of get wiped off the board real quick is just not fun. Even if there's some tactical coolness in it, it's not as much fun as the give and take and the suspense and the challenges. So historic, I've got to go more toward the tactics. Now you go to X-Wing, that's a whole different thing. There, it's to me, it's sort of a narrative thing around the list building. I only play Scum, and the only rebels I play are the ones that are kind of allied in with Scum. So it's a very small set of ships that I've got access to. And what I do like to do is build lists that only utilize those ships and the cards available for those ships, because I'm not really going out and buying all their collections. And trying, for me, to see if I can hold my own against better lists that have basically the best of the best out there. Best upgrades, the best ships, all that kind of stuff. Can I hold my own? Can I give them a challenge? That, to me, is what I enjoy about stuff like those games. And then finally, when you get down to the skirmish level, that's a whole different thing. I know this is kind of a long answer, but it's complex. I mean, there's a lot of reasons I like gaming, and it's all about the type of game. And so for something like Mordheim and Frostgrave, this is a small skirmish, it's building the story of that warband and the main characters in the warband. That's really what it comes down to. If I'm getting beat up all the time, it's not a lot of fun as far as how to say it doesn't feel good, right? But the idea of being the underdog and coming back and being able to still hold my own, even after taking a beating here or there, it adds and builds onto that story. So I really, again, you start with the really big stuff, fantasy stuff, be all narrative. When you get down to the skirmish level, it's still all narrative. And even if it was a historical skirmish, if they had that, I haven't found one. I still think it would be all about the story. That's kind of where I find it. So the interaction we have with the players, and they goof off, and crazy comments, and the things that happen in a skirmish type game, that's really where the fun happens. So hopefully that kind of answers your question. If not, just give it another go. Right? So anyway, thanks a lot for the question, Doug. So let's move on to a couple questions that came in from a Facebook group I posted this video on. All right, the first one is from, I'm probably going to butcher the name, so I apologize, Kim Arne Larson. The question is, what was your first board game you played, and what is your all-time board game's favorite? Not war games, skirmish, etc. So I think he's going for a specific game. Now, board games, I have a different definition of board games than maybe you're intending, so I'm going to kind of answer this a couple different ways. The first one, when I was a kid, the first board game I probably ever played was something like Chutes and Ladders, something simple. And I grew up playing, Monopoly with the family and all. Yes, even Monopoly with the family. But one of the board games I absolutely loved, and I guess I'd have to say my favorite, was Stratego. I remember summers, a friend of mine and I would sit on our front porch, and that's all we'd play for hours. Stratego. I don't know why it was so fun, but it is. I still can't explain why Stratego is so fun. Now, the thing is, if you talk about wargaming in general, I think my answer slightly changes, because there are games, there's tabletop, and there's board type actual war games. And so if I talked about my favorite board game in the war genre, that would absolutely have to be one of two things. Squad Leader or Air Force. The reason I have to have two is that there are two completely different types of games. One is literally small unit squad size tactics on the table, or on the X maps. The other is just plane to plane combat in the skies. So there's two different areas, and they're both interesting to me. So it's a toss up between, I can't really say which one's one of my favorite, but those are my absolute favorite board games that are war games. And so it's all kind of boiled down to strategy games. I guess that's because got that little competitive streak in me, and I like to win stuff, especially in a war setting. So I hope that answered your question. If you got any others, please go ahead and put them below. All right, so let's kind of wrap this one up with one final question. Again, from the Facebook group. This one happens to be again from 40K, and he asks, "What is your favorite emoji to use?" This one was pretty easy to answer, and we'll close out the video by showing you my favorite emoji. Catch you guys later, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.